Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please give a big Mad Monster Party Atlanta welcome to Carl Weathers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was expecting a little more. I fell asleep there for a second, and then they said, "You're on." Okay, here I am.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us here at Atlanta and for taking part in another Q&A with Mad Monster.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here in Atlanta after so many years. Some of you may or may not remember that years ago, Carol O'Connor shot a show down here called In the Heat of the Night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough to know Carol prior to that. Met him through Burgess Meredith, and Carol asked me to be a part of the show. So I got a chance to spend a little time down here in the Atlanta area in Conyers, and we did a show that I think a lot of people loved and still love today. So good to be back.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you again for joining us. So I have a few questions I'll ask, and then we'll open up to the audience here in about 10 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, have them ready, have your hand up nice and high, and we'll get to as many of you as we can. But let's go ahead and start. So, of course, you're very well known for your work as an actor, as a director now as well, too. And you got your start, though, playing football. Can you talk a little bit about that? And because if I remember correctly, you also did some theater in college as well, too, during that period.
Yeah, all the above. Well, the long, short story is I did the first play I ever did when I was a kid in grade school. And anybody in here who knows that you do something and you get applause for it, it kind of sticks with you and encourages you in many ways to want to do more of it. And so I did that first play, which was, fifth or sixth grade, and got bitten by the bug. Actually, the truth is, I did a play even before that, one of those pageant plays, where kids are dressed up with the weird wigs and the pantaloons and all that kind of crazy stuff and tights. And finally, as I matriculated and went through secondary school and all that, I fell in love with football, and football was probably physically, even though I tried out and made every sport in junior high, the only thing I was really any good at was football. But those coaches were generous, I think, because I was the kind of kid who I just tried hard. I just wanted to be successful at something. And despite the fact that I wasn't the best at a lot of those, I made the teams, but football was kind of my wheelhouse, So did that and got a scholarship to an all-men's Catholic school in New Orleans, which is where I grew up. And then I left there in just before my senior year, between junior and senior year, and moved to Long Beach, California. Had a grandmother who doted on me, and I'd been there and visited, and wow, it was so beautiful and so open and so many things that I appreciated. And I went there and then went to finished high school at Long Beach Polytechnic. Long Beach Poly is well known for a lot of athletes who've gone through there, and a number of them have made it into the NFL. Yeah. And from there, I went to Long Beach City College because I thought football was over. I was going to do something different. Yeah. But as soon as I got there, what happened? The coaches came to me, and I started playing football again. And had a teacher there who encouraged me to go and try out for a play. God only knows why, but seriously must have seen something in me, and I went and I did that, and I got the role in the play, and did that, and then I got a scholarship to San Diego State. Don Coryell was the head coach. Played at San Diego State, made that team, and majored in theater. Yeah. And that's how it all began. And here we are all these years later, and I've been very fortunate.
Yeah. Cool. Now, you've played a number of iconic roles over the years. Of course, most notable, Apollo Creed.
That's not the most notable. Come on. It's one of the most
One of the most notable.
People love all those characters. Am I right? Am I right? There you go.
Yes.
Come on, get it right. Get it right.
Yes. But can you talk a little bit about being cast in that as that character?
Well, the misnomer I think for a lot of people is that if you work in quote unquote Hollywood, you've made it. Well, I after football, after I decided, I played with the Oakland Raiders, and then I went to Canada and played in Canada for 3 years, CFL, and there came a point where I wasn't having fun doing that anymore. I was getting beaten up, and my body was aching, and I was still very young, of course, but in football, and particularly in professional football, 3 or 4 years, man, you've been beaten.
Yeah.
And because you went through junior high school, college, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of years of being pounded on.
Yeah.
And I also just had this yearning
Yeah.
to do what I really wanted to do, which was be an actor. And I'd had some San Francisco experience and some success in San Francisco, and did a play or two in San Francisco, and decided out of naivete that I was going to go to Hollywood and give myself a year to make it. Well, I say naivete because there are people who work their entire lives at something and never quite make it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I was real fortunate. I started working within about 6 months of going to Los Angeles, and I was fortunate because it didn't stop. Worked in a lot of television in the early years, everything from Streets of San Francisco to Kung Fu to Del Vecchio to oh my God, Canon, SWAT, Good Times. I mean, a lot of different shows, And that kind of stuff really just helps an actor, a young actor in my mid-20s, to really feel that there's possibility. And then this movie came along, which at the beginning, people don't realize this was a script. That is, the history with Stallone and all that sort of stuff, and he didn't want to sell it outright. He wanted to be a part of it, and made the deal to star in the movie. Well, they didn't want to see Carl Weathers because I was nobody. I was just a struggling actor, as they say, right? Working in a lot of television. I'd done a few movies, but nothing that really exploded onto the scene. And they wanted a boxer who could act. And so they went after people that they couldn't get. And finally, someone slipped me a script because I couldn't get one through normal channels. And I read the script, and bang, I just knew that this was me. As a young kid growing up, you're emulating Ali, and everybody wants to dance around and be Muhammad Ali, or be the guy who's beating Muhammad Ali. Well, I thought I could do it, even though I'd never boxed. And so I got an interview finally and went in and told them that I'd boxed, and gave them this long story about when I was in Canada playing ball. In the off season, I would do club boxing, and I'd never boxed in my life. But I believed I could do it. And they had me read for them, and apparently that went over well enough that they said, okay, well, let's put him in the ring. So they sent me out on an excursion, and I remember it like it was yesterday, in Santa Monica, California. There used to be this gym there, and I went into the ring with a real boxer, a guy named Frankie Crawford, who was a middleweight. He wore me out. I mean, if you've never boxed before, one of the things that really kills a lot of people is they don't know how to relax. You got to relax when you're throwing punches, because if you don't, the tension alone will wear you out. Just holding your arms up, 3-minute rounds, it's a lot longer than you think it is. So by the end of 3 minutes, I could hardly lift my arms, but I could move, I could dance, I was athletic, and Frankie and one of the other guys went back and told him, I think he can do it. Lo and behold, I got the role of Apollo Creed, and as they say, the rest is history.
Now, what was that production schedule like? There's not a lot of rehearsals typically in film, but what something like that where you have a lot of choreography with your movements. Was this a situation where there was rehearsals going into it, and what was that like?
Great question, because without so-called rehearsal time, there's just no way we could have done that. I mean, we had to choreograph everything. So whatever you see there, I would say 98% of it is worked out ahead of time. You know, we had, I think on the first movie, maybe a month and a half to figure out the choreography. But you had to be in shape before you even did that. So I was fortunately constantly in shape in those days. I think I was at the time maybe 26. That's a baby, okay? And so your body is just in the kind of shape where just normally walking the street, if you don't have health problems, you're in pretty decent shape. You can go longer than a lot of people can. But, you know, to get in the kind of physical shape to do it, and then muscular shape, because basically you're walking around in your underwear on screen, right, in boxing shorts. So with the ego that most of us have, there ain't no way in hell I want to look like I'm not in the best shape in the world, right? So we trained and trained and trained. I certainly did. I was in the gym, and at times I would fast and truly train 3 times a day in a gym called Vince's Gym with the old Vince Gironda, who was one of the old-time bodybuilders who really taught me a lot. And then, of course, when we went in to actually do the movie after I had the job, it took us, as I said, about a month and a half to choreograph it. And for Sly and I to get in the ring and figure out how we needed to throw these punches and make it look real. And of course, then John Avildsen is involved, the director, one of the greatest directors I've ever worked with. And man, we just hammered at it. And then finally, when we got to shoot it, you want to shoot that first because you're in great shape. It's all fresh in your mind. If you got hurt before the end of the movie and you got to shoot it, then you're in bad trouble. So we shot that first, and it was about a week, maybe 8 days, 12, 14 hours a day in the ring every day. Each of us had a masseur because the body just, after a certain amount of time, doesn't want to function properly. So you had to have somebody just constantly working on your body, and then you're hot and then you're cold, and you're hot and then you're cold between takes. So it was a fascinating grind, you know, and I don't think most people can really appreciate what it took to just do those fights and make them look believable. And the good news, I mean, you got to give credit where it's due, is Sly had written a great script, but we had a great director and we had a great cameraman. And we had maybe the second movie where Steadicam was utilized as much as it was. Steadicam, which is that device where the camera is mounted on kind of a jib, and whoever is operating it can move it around and it looks smooth and it doesn't look all jiggly with handheld. Well, man, without that, because that made everything just look like you were sitting there in the audience and believing what was going on. So we were really fortunate in so many ways, and thank God throughout my career, I've had a lot of good fortune.
Now, of course, outside of acting, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, you, of course, have gone on to have a great career as a director as well, too. And so, you know, working on films like Rocky or Predator, where you're around these talented directors as well, too, how much were you at that point starting to, like, at what point in your career did you start thinking, I could do this, I could tell these stories?
I think most of us always think we can do what everybody else is doing, despite how little talent we have for it, or acumen, or focus, or just courage. You know, sometimes just to step into another arena, so to speak, really requires a lot of courage and or ignorance and naivete, because you got to believe you can do it. That's the first thing, you know, and then you just, for me anyway, sports taught me so much. And when you're doing that as a young kid in particular, or even when I became a professional as an athlete, I don't know that most of us realize how really and truly important it is to, first of all, have tremendous confidence, and secondly, a tremendous amount of patience. Because nothing that you can master, you can do in one day, or one take, or just with one job. Mastery doesn't come from that. Mastery comes over a long period of time, you know? And over that period of time, you develop those skills sets that are necessary. You become a greater student at something, so you start to watch people who do that well, whose work you appreciate, and you begin to learn about, I think maybe more than anything else, becoming a great observer of what's going on around you, you know? So over a period of time, to answer your question, I found that there was a challenge in directing that I had never expected. And out of sports came the same thing. You know, with sports, technique can really supersede so many things if you have the physical acumen for whatever it is, tennis. I mean, I watched a video just this morning of someone with table tennis who could hit a ball and make it curve around the table, and there are a bunch of cartons, and one of them had a cutout, and the ball went into the carton with the cutout. How many hours every day must you practice that to become efficient at doing that? Just that one thing. It's not like just getting it on the table, but he's got to hit the other side of the table. It curves around and comes in a little hole. Man, that takes dedication. That's where that patience thing comes in, that dedication thing comes in. And the rest of it is just, you got to be courageous enough to believe it's going to happen. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. And so that became really, for me, kind of the mantra. And with directing, practice it every day, man. Just practice it every day, you know? It's never going to be perfect until you're laid to rest. Then it's perfectly over. But the rest of it is, you know, you just stay at it and stay at it. So that and loving what I do. Loving the directing is a big part of it.
Now you have had several projects, a number of projects, where you have both acted in front of the camera and been the director behind the camera as well too. What are the challenges in that and doing both roles in the same production?
Again, courage is so important in everything. And it's not blind courage. You know, if you've been successful at anything, then you've had success. I don't care what it is. You could have played tiddlywinks. You can utilize that success to say, wait a minute, if I could do that, then guess what? I can grow and do this. I can get better at this. I can be much better than I am today. Now, if you're dedicated, man, you're home free. But that dedication can't be wavering. It's got to be unwavering, along with confidence in oneself and desire to do that thing. And at the end of the day, you got to love the process, because we all know that no one can dictate what the outcome is going to be. That's impossible. But the process, I don't care what it is, if it's getting down on your knees every morning or every night and praying, that's a part of the process. You ain't got to guarantee that what you're praying for you're going to get. But the process, that teaches you something, and that in of itself leads to something. So for me, with whether it's acting or directing or whatever that thing is, the process has become something that I am invested in, married to, will continue no matter what. And that's how I get better at what I do. So how is it that when you're in front of the camera and you're behind the camera directing yourself, I've had a certain amount of success in front of that camera. I know what to do there. I don't have to question myself. The directing is where you suddenly say, wait a minute, it's not about me, the actor anymore, or even the director. It's about the project. So I have to learn to integrate what I do as a director in telling that story and utilizing the skills of this actor, the same person, but with a bifurcated kind of focus, right? I have to understand how to utilize this guy to the best in every scene and in every project, but also I've got to work with other actors. So I have to also know what I want to get out of them and how to get it best and get the best performance out of them, and utilize all those characters to best tell the story. And as the director, the skill is really just to tell the damn story. My directorial has nothing to do with your acting. It's just I'm helping you become a better actor and telling the part of the story that you're involved in. So all those mind games, if you will, is what I'm doing as a director.